Hey, and welcome to episode number 76 of the Brave Widow Show. Today I talk with Jess Jones. No, I don't think there's any relation there. But yeah, I talk with Jess, and she is going to share her story on the show today. And before we dive into her story, I just want to put a little something in your ear, give you a little something to think about. We've just had Christmas. And maybe, in fact, you are busy with so many plans or doing something different that you're listening to this at a much later time. Either way, it's still relevant. But at the time of this podcast, we've just had Christmas. We are maneuvering through all of the holidays. And for some of us, that's really, really a hard, difficult time. And for others, it may be bittersweet. And for others, it may be full of love and gratitude and a wonderful time with family and friends. None of those is wrong. But what I want you to think about as we move into 2024, as we move into the future of this new year, and what that means and what that could mean for you is I really want 2024 to be your year, to be the year that you are able to move forward, to be the year that you're able to get your feet underneath you, to be the year that you start creating dreams again. You start building a life again, a life that you can be happy to have, a life full of joy and positivity and hope and things that excite you again. And as I share those things with you, I have to just sit back and think for a minute, because it's amazing to me sometimes still that less than a year ago, I still was trying to find myself in this new world. I still was wondering, is it possible to live a life where every good experience and good memory and good milestone isn't ruined by sadness, isn't ruined by the fact that there's a bitter voice in my ear saying, well, yeah, that's good. That's good for you. That happened, but your Nathan isn't here. Your person isn't here. It doesn't matter. I believe that it was possible. I had no idea how. I didn't know how I was going to get from there to here where I am today. But I can proudly sit in front of you on this microphone and tell you that now I do live a life full of joy and hope and excitement. And yes, there are still moments where I do miss my person. I do miss being able to talk to Nathan, for him to not be able to see his kiddos as they're growing up and driving and doing all those things that teenagers do as they hit different milestones. Of course, there are occasionally those moments, but grief no longer has uncontrollable power over me. I'm not volatile like I was in those early days. And there's so much joy and gratitude and hope and excitement. And it's just incredible to me that I can look back and vividly remember exactly how I felt a year ago versus how I can sit here in front of you today and give you hope that even if you're wondering what could be possible, how that would be possible for you in your future, to reassure you that it is. It is possible to build a life of hope and joy and dreams and excitement and plans, and a life where you're doing things you really never had even dreamed of. Because maybe for whatever reason, it's something that you and your person wouldn't have wanted to do together. Maybe they wouldn't have wanted to do. You didn't even know that you were interested in. So much about widowhood is finding our new identity, creating the person that we want to become, figuring out who this new version of us is. And that can be so confusing. Like, in many ways, I know the core of who I am is the same, but in a lot of ways, I have changed so much. I've changed so much in these 2.5 years. And it's just incredible to think how much this changes every widow that I've spoken to. And so before we dive into Jess's story, which I believe you're going to thoroughly enjoy, I just want you to start thinking about this new year and not being intimidated by it, not dreading it as another year gone by without your person, but with the perspective of hope that it's a new year. There's hope for you. It could be a new chapter in your story. It could be new opportunities, new dreams, new hobbies, new habits. It could mean so many things for you. And it can really be exciting if you allow it to be that. So I would love for you to join me in the Brave Widow membership community as I walk side by side with so many amazing, brave, generous widows as we purposefully move forward this year towards rediscovery, towards hope and purpose and intention. And I can't wait to get back behind this microphone a year later and to be able to share with you all of the things that we've accomplished and how it has impacted so many people's lives. And I want you to be one of the people that I'm able to speak about. So please consider joining us in the Brave Widow membership community and take this journey with us this year. I am so confident that you are going to be able to accomplish more than you ever even knew was possible just by taking these steps forward. You don't have to walk this journey alone. This doesn't have to be an isolating experience. You can walk side by side with other widows who care about you, who will pour into you, who will be there for you. It's truly an amazing community and experience. So you can join the Brave Widow membership community by going to bravewidow.com/join, JOIN, and I would love to see you there. All right, let's dive into Jess's story. Welcome to the Brave Widow podcast. I'm your host, Emily Jones. We help young widows heal their heart, find hope, and dream again for the future. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Brave Widow Show. Today, I have a special guest, Jess Jones. And even though we may share the last name, we did not plan on wearing the same color of shirt. But if you're watching on video, you'll notice we both decided to wear green today. But Jess, thank you for coming on the show today and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I know our audience would love to know a little bit about you, about your story and your background. So if you don't mind, I would love for you to share that with them.
Sure. My name is Jess Jones. I am an executive assistant. I live in Virginia, and I was married to my husband for 17 years before he was killed in a car accident. We have two wonderful children. My son is 11 and my daughter is 14. And now we have a dog. But we're just making it work as we can.
Yeah, and 17 years, my goodness. I know I was married right 1 month before 20 years, and that's a lifetime, especially, I just turned 40, so that was like over half of my life at the time. Yeah, was being
and
married.
we were best friends for like 9 years before we actually started dating, so we feels like it's been even longer than, it's been forever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you kind of grow up together, and
Yep.
I think you really struggle then in finding identity after. But tell us a little bit about your, relationship with your spouse, or maybe a little bit more about what happened either during or
Sure.
after the time that you lost him.
Sure. Eric and I were best friends for a long, long time, and we eventually gave in and started dating, and had a really great marriage. I think because we based it on our friendship, it was, I mean, obviously we were in love with each other, but we had such a, he was my everything. He was my best friend and my spouse and and the father of my children, and he was really good at that. So, there's definitely a big hole missing in that part of my life. Obviously, in November of 2021, we had just actually recovered from COVID, really bad COVID. It was like, took us out for a long time, and it was his first day out of the house, and he decided to go to a thrift store, which he loved to do. And so he called me on the phone to say that he was just getting ready to take the exit to our house and that he would be there in 20 minutes because I was taking the kids to a trampoline park and I needed my car. He had my car. And I didn't really want to take his work truck, but I did tell the kids if dad's not back in, 45 minutes, we'll just empty out all his tools and we'll just take the work truck. I was, powerful mom then. And so, he didn't call. I tried to call him several times to find out like status, where are you? Cause it just kept taking longer and longer for him to get home and he wasn't answering the phone. I started feeling a little sick. And then I loaded the kids up in the truck because I didn't want them to be concerned. And I just, we all went to the trampoline park. We get to the trampoline park and the manager looks at me and says, "Ma'am, are you okay? You don't look like you're feeling very well. Do you want a bottle of water?" And I said, "No, sorry, I really want to get out of here." Because I still couldn't get a hold of Eric. 3 minutes later, after the manager came up to me, the neighbor across the street called and said the state police were at my house. And she said, they just need you to come home right now. And I said, okay. So I packed up the kids and we pulled in the driveway. And sure enough, there were 2 or 3 state police cars in my driveway. And I get out of the car. I tell the kids to go directly into the house, but I got out of the car and they informed me that he died in a car accident. It was a single car accident. We had he blew a donut tire. I can't think of what it's called right now.
Like a spare tire.
A spare tire. Yeah. There was a spare tire on the front, right. And he was taking a turn and it all lost control. So it was a really bad night. It was a really long night because my kids were in the window of the front of the house staring at me, wondering why the police are talking to mom. And my daughter was really concerned because she had also tried to call my husband and he never ignored her calls and he didn't answer. So I think she kind of knew. But I eventually came in the house and sat with them and I don't know how I kept it together.
I was going to say, how did you find the strength to, try to absorb the gravity of the information they gave you and then turn around and have to walk inside where you knew your kids were waiting?
My first initial reaction to them telling me that Eric had passed away in the car accident was pure rage. It was, I don't know where it came from. And I don't know. I was mad at Eric for being in the car with a donut. I was mad at him for making a turn when he shouldn't have, or maybe too fast. I was angry at the police for bringing me news that I didn't want to hear. They had offered to go in and sit with my kids, and I said some things I probably shouldn't have and told them no. I did have 2 neighbor friends here. One was a police officer and one is my girlfriend's husband, and they were here to help me kind of in case I lost it. But I have this thing inside me that when there's an emergency, whether it be, a kid fell and broke his arm or whatever it is, I just have this calm inside me that it's like an adrenaline response. I don't know what it is. But so I did call my best friend, who happens to be a widow also, and she was on her way over. And so I wanted to tell the kids before everybody descended on the house. And I just kind of pulled up my boots and did it. It was not fun and they were devastated. It was awful. And then we all kind of bawled together. I feel like that. I think that was the first moment that I let tears fall.
And how old were your kids at the time?
9 and 12. Yeah. And my son and my husband were together. I mean, not to say that he didn't love my daughter the same way, but he and my son were very close. So he took it really terribly. It was awful. And my daughter was a mess. And it was just, the kids, I feel like I've been able to survive this because of my kids, because I have to be strong for my kids.
Yeah. So what were those next few, weeks? What did that look like for, the 3 of you?
Well, part of it is like, I feel like I was in this haze of this, things that were happening around me. Funeral was being planned, which I did plan, but I had a lot of help. My brother-in-law's a pastor, and he was really helpful in that regard, just leading the direction in that. But I had my inputs, and then my sister flew here from Michigan, and it was a blur of um, people in my house. And I did take short-term disability from work for quite a while, I think 2 months, because I just was not in my right mind. I couldn't function in an office setting or talk to people about work things. So one of the things that those next couple of days I did was work with HR, which everybody who's lost someone knows the administrative part of a death is huge, the getting the death certificates and canceling the subscriptions, but talking to HR and getting all of that settled, and it was awful. But I wish I could say I remember a lot more of it. I just know it was a blur. The day of the funeral was I think it was 7 days later, and I just didn't want to get dressed. I didn't want to. I remember saying to myself, do you think anybody would care if I went in my pajamas and didn't brush my hair? Like, would they really have the nerve to say something to me? I don't think they would. But my mom was a little bit more encouraging and just was like, you can do it and get dressed. And so I did, and I made it, but I can't tell you who was at the funeral.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting how our brains work where it really puts us in this fog or like this haze, and it takes so much energy just to do any one little thing that we're just trying to survive, much less have a lot of memories or be able
Bring
much
people
more.
or
Yes.
entertain people. Like, I felt like that the funeral was, it was beautiful. And we did, my kids helped the planning too. And they put in some personal parts of the funeral. My daughter wrote a poem, and my son picked the music for the slideshow, and it was moving. It was really, really moving, and they were good. Their request was that they had their best friend sit with them at the funeral, and that um that was my daughter's request, and she had two of her closest friends with her, and we had a really great support system of the neighborhood. I am so blessed in where I live. My friends here they're so great. They did a food train, the whole bit. Um, but those it once it settled down, once the funeral was over and everybody kind of went back to their homes, and a few weeks later, I could definitely see that we were going to have to do some create a new normal for the three of us.
Yeah.
And that was going to be a little tough because I was struggling a little bit mentally. And then I didn't really know. I was so busy doing all the administrative stuff that it's kind of hard to focus on the kids, which is sad to say, but it is. There's just so much to get done. Um, but we did do it in March of that year. So I went back to work January 18th, and then February 1st, my employer had announced that they were laying off a large ton of people, which was a little devastating at first. But then they'd offered this wonderful severance package, and so I consider this a blessing. But I took the severance package, and I took the thing, and I was off work for 6 months. And during those 6 months, the kids and I literally created our new normal. We went on vacations together. We did therapy. I had the house repainted. We just all kind of pitched in to sort of figure out where we fit in the picture. The summer was great considering. We did lots of trips together. I did some with one kid and some with another kid and some with us all together, and we made great memories. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to have that time, because not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that is, to your point, such a great blessing. And I think it's important that you started to make new memories and started to go places together, because I think that does help when you're making those new memories and not necessarily trying to live the same life that you've always had, which is
right.
hard.
It is hard.
Um, so you lost your husband in November, and school is in full swing, and you have holidays right after that.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, that was tough.
how were things with your kids going back to school and getting back into that routine?
I made the mistake of making them go back to school too quickly initially. I let them have, obviously they were off for the funeral, and they were off between the day that he died and the funeral. Um, and then I think I let them have a couple more days, but I sent then I was like, okay, we really got to get back in the saddle, and we got to go back to school, and we got to do stuff. And um it didn't go well. My son was an emotional wreck at school. He was in 4th grade at the time, and the teacher would report that he would just lay his head down on the desk and just stare out at the window at whatever, nothingness. My daughter was having panic attacks in the bathroom and texting and calling me on my phone to come pick her up, and was refusing to go to school. But I decided then it would be best to pull them out for another at least week, of which I did, because it was too raw. Um, the elementary school was wonderful. The principal, who I really love, she came to me and said, we put together a team between the psychologist, the social worker, his school counselor that he really loved. And we are here to support Russell no matter whatever the ups and downs are. And they were amazing. They were very informative to me throughout the day to let me know what his mood was like. And so I was able to go and get him if I needed to, or encourage him if I needed to. And the other thing is, Russell, my son, had a stipulation that he didn't want anybody to talk to him about it, the dad, the death, any of it. So the principal somehow got that word around the school. So none of the faculty members or even the students really said anything to him about it. It was, Russell really appreciated that. My daughter, she just had a really rough year. She refused to go to therapy, and well, that's not true. The school counselors at the middle school level are a little different than they are at the elementary school level. They do scheduling, at least here. They do scheduling, and they can do some talking if you're uncomfortable. But when they brought her in for the first time, they were a little too, so I heard your dad died. If you have anything you want to talk about, come chat with me. And she was a little put off. I think she was just angry. Everybody goes through that phase. And so she was very turned off by the thought of therapy, because I did bring her to a grief therapist, and the grief therapist kind of did the same thing. She just hammered right in with the dad stuff right in the beginning. And I was in the room, and I thought, oh, this isn't going to go well. So unfortunately, Carly was a little bit more difficult to kind of help in that regard. My son went to grief therapy. We started kind of right away, and he loved it, and he loved the therapist, and he went from November or December to May. And then when May hit, the weather was nice. He wanted to ride his bike with his friends, and the therapist said, hey man, that vitamin D is going to be better for him than I am. And as long as he's doing good in school and he's not having these bouts of anger or crying, then let him ride his bike. So, but my daughter stayed in that bubble of anxiety and depression. We tried to take her to a physical during the year, and she cried through the whole thing and wouldn't let them touch her. She just broke down. And the doctor, the pediatrician at the time, said, I think it'd be best for her if she went on a little bit of medication. So we started her on that.
That had to be really hard as a mom, just watching your kids struggle and getting notified from the school or from physicians that, they're really having a difficult time. Did that interfere with your own grief and your ability to feel like you could focus on you and what you wanted to process when you're also worrying about them?
Yeah, because I have these days where something will come up and I'll just start crying out of the blue. So I feel like in some ways I do process the grief, but other times I'm so concerned about my kids, especially during the heat of all that. Or even now with grades, or just being a single parent is a totally different thing, that I forget to grieve myself or to take time for myself. I have intentionally done things like on our anniversary, I rent a tiny house. I've done it twice now. I rent a tiny house and I go on like a guided hike. And I'm gone for 2 days, and it's just me, it's my Zen time to be with Eric in spirit. And I've seen signs, it's been a lovely adventure on those two anniversaries, but it is hard to focus on me when I have the kids all the time. I have um lovely, and my in-laws are just amazing, and they live close by, and my mom and dad are just awesome, and they don't live too far. And so when I need a break, they will take the kids for the weekend or days or however long I need them to. But it is, yeah, it's I don't know that I've ever really just lost it. I feel like it's going to
Yeah.
come though.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably will. And to your point, I don't think that means that you're not processing or you're not moving forward because you obviously are. But
Right.
I think sometimes it is hard to feel like you can just be and you can just focus on you and not have to worry about,
The
them
kid.
or their schedule or, oh, I got to dry my eyes before 3,
Yep.
um, and all
In the
that. So,
beginning, in the beginning, I would was my body was waking up every morning at 5 o'clock, and I would cry from 5 to 7 on the couch in the living room because my son was sleeping in my husband's side of the bed. And I just had to get it out. And I don't know what it was. It was just my body's way of releasing, I think, all of the things that had been going on. So that felt really good. And then eventually, once we started the therapy side of things, I didn't feel that need so much anymore. I did see a therapist too for a little while. And I just wasn't too long. It was a couple of months. I felt like she was pretty much coaching me on how to be a single parent. And I don't know that I was necessarily ready for that. So I just kind of said, so I encourage the therapy though. I think that it works for everybody. I mean, it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Not everybody's comfortable doing it, but it's definitely, oh my gosh, it's definitely was a healthier thing. And I got a recommendation on a therapist from neighbors. That's the hardest part, I think, about therapy, is finding the right fit for you.
it is, and I always recommend to people where they can to find somebody that has walked in their shoes or somebody that
Right.
really understands. If you're going for grief, then try to find someone who really personally understands what it's like to lose someone they love. And even if it's not a spouse or a parent, depending on your situation, to me, it's always easier to explain things and to get mutual understanding from someone who, in some way, can understand the gravity of what you're walking through or, what you're trying to process. But, therapy and coaches, it sometimes takes a while to find someone that you really connect with and that can help you. But I do think for anyone who wants to work on their healing, that's definitely a good option to consider.
Yeah, my daughter didn't. So she did not agree to do therapy for a really long time until her this next year of school. She just didn't go to school. I mean, she was there for maybe 3 days a week, but she was calling out 2 days a week. She was using every excuse under the book. It was anxiety and depression, and it was a hot mess. So the my daughter's seventh grade year, she just didn't attend. She graduated the year by the, you know, geez, just barely. And I was stressed about it constantly. And I kept impressing on her, this isn't the way that we're gonna do stuff. You've got to take action and, take the medicine the doctor suggested for you, and really you need to see a therapist, but you need to decide on what you need to do to get yourself feeling like Carly again. And that whole year she just refused. This year she started high school. Sorry. This year she started high school, and she, I think a maturity level just kind of came in, and she also wanted to do some things. And I said, if I'm working for our family to make sure that we are successful people and we're happy and healthy, I need you to put in your part. And in order to do some things like have privileges like horseback riding, I need you to participate in therapy and take medication so that you graduate high school. I mean, really, it was what the bottom line was, but I said it a little bit more warm and fuzzy than that. But she was really resistant at first, but she's been on it, on doing therapy once a week and taking her medication, and it has turned her life around. She's just a whole new. I mean, she's got all A's and B's, which is, I'm like, oh my gosh. Her teachers love her. She participates in class. She's a very shy kid to begin with, so that doesn't help all of it. But the teachers, I went to back to school night and they said she was doing fabulously, and she was participating in class, reading out loud when asked to, and doing all the things. So, and she goes every day. and she gets up on her own and she makes her own lunch. I mean, it's
Hey,
just
even better.
crazy. It's such a turnaround, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy about that. It's a big relief. I want her to be successful in whatever she decides to do, but I need to give her the tools to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's hard too to know as a parent, like how much do you push? How much do you expect? Where you don't want them to not be resilient and to be pushed, but you don't want to push them too far. So
Right.
it sounds like you found a really good balance there. And I certainly resonate with your story. And my daughter also had a lot of panic attacks, anxiety attacks, was calling me to pick her up,
Hmm.
frequently there for a while. And it breaks your heart as a mom,
It does.
hearing that and empathizing with your child. Now, one thing I know we talked about before we hit record was the 504 process
Right.
and how you can get accommodations for your child at school. Do you mind to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So because seventh grade went, or eighth grade went so squirrely, I was wanted to come into her freshman year of high school prepared for her to be that way again, basically not going to school and not and calling out during the day and everything. So I had talked to my best friend, and she had a 504 for her son, or had gone through the process and explained it a little bit to me. And so I approached the counseling center. First, I told the counselors about our scenario. I at the very beginning of the year, the first day of school, I just said, this is the situation, and I want to make sure that I have, your support. And they were great about it. And then I instantly said, my next email said I would really like to discuss a 504 for Carly. um 504 gives them um some accommodations and can make things situations when they're having panic attacks, or um whatever your child is going through, a little bit more tolerable in school. So for example, Carly has a fast pass. Some of her teachers don't allow bathroom usage during the day, like during a period, or you can go 3 times a week, but you can't go every day. I don't know. They have some really strange rules. One of the teachers has the rule that you have 5 minutes to go to the bathroom, and if you're 1 second late, you lose your bathroom privileges for 7 straight days. So that had Carly really uncomfortable. That one teacher with that one rule. So I talked to the counseling center, and I brought it up in the 504 meeting, which, in case anybody wants to know, when you have a 504 meeting, it involves a couple of faculty members, a psychologist, a social worker, and a counselor, a principal of some level, and one or two of her teachers. So it's a committee of people that make the decision. And they were really accommodating. What we agreed during our personal 504 meeting, because it was the second week of school, was that we didn't have enough data to see how Carly was going to be this year, the ninth grade year, to put her on an official 504. But we would revisit it in after the first quarter. But what they did do for her was to give her a fast pass, which is basically a pass to leave class anytime that she feels the need to go to the bathroom, to take deep breaths, to run to the counseling center, to meet with somebody, to stand in the hallway and just kind of gather herself. So that really, just having the pass has helped her have strength. I don't even think she's ever used it, honestly, but I know
Just
that she's
knowing.
just knowing that she has that pass, because the one teacher's bathroom policy made her really uncomfortable, nervous. And because when you have a panic attack, man, you just can't do that in a classroom full of people.
Yeah, and I don't even struggle with panic attacks now, but just being told like you can't go to the bathroom, you can't do this or
Right.
that, it makes you want to go.
Makes you really have to go. Plus,
Yeah.
let's be honest, not all bathroom urgencies are 5 minutes long, and she's a young teen, and so it wasn't a very forgiving policy, but there wasn't much I could do about it. In regards to her other teachers, though, I did send a message to, I think, almost all of her teachers through the app that we have at the county, and just gave them a background about Carly and her dad, and that it presents itself in panic attacks, or moments of needing to leave the classroom. And almost all of them were so receptive and thankful. Her gym teacher, she's actually doing health this semester, but they're doing a section on anxiety and depression, which I thought was really great. And her gym teacher just said that thank you so much for telling me, because it really helps when we talk about those things to kind of, not tailor it to Carly, but keep her in mind when we're having those conversations. And he has them do yoga every day, and she says she hates it, but it's really been good for her. Typical 14-year-old response, right? So I'm really thrilled with the way the high school's handled her this year. We've had a couple of other incidents that weren't major incidents, but like she missed the deadline for homecoming tickets because she was waiting for something to come back from the administration. And anyway, the counselors were so great. And so Carly got really upset. The counselors were really great in getting us to fix that. And so I'm so far this year, I'm really, really pleased with that. But I will probably readdress the 504 after the first quarter, although the data so far that they're going to have is that she's getting up and going to school and doing what she needs to do. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
A big
Yeah,
positive.
that's great. And it sounds like you've had a really supportive school system that, isn't trying to fight you or isn't trying to force you to go through the process just to make even some more minor accommodations. So I think that's great you've had that.
Yeah, they're really wonderful. And the elementary school's been the same way too. Russell goes to junior high next year as a 7th grader, and I'm a little nervous. It's just a different environment. Everybody in middle school, it seems like it's a little intense.
Yeah. So
So
what advice would you have for, a young widow that's a parent and they're trying to be supportive of their kids and maybe their kids are struggling? Is there anything else that you feel like as a family you did that was helpful, or maybe that you wish you would have done that would help them in their grief while also not neglecting you and your need to grieve?
yeah, when I saw the grief therapist, she told me a lot of very interesting things about grief. But one of the things that she explained, actually, I think it was during my son's appointment, and she just explained the emotions that everybody's going to go through during the grief process. She wrote all of them out. I think there are 5. And she said there are going to be days where you guys are going to be really sad and cry, or there's going to be days where you're going to be really mad at each other for no reason, and it's not going to make much sense, but you're just going to lash out, and you have to have a lot of forgiveness for each other. And you have to recognize that it's coming from a place of grief and not coming from a place of true anger. And so she talked to Russell and I about that, and Russell had some pretty upsetting anger moments. And I just explained, we just kind of had to go over that and reiterate that to each other, that, wow, that was intense and that wasn't very nice, but that was grief talking, and you just have to give each other a lot of forgiveness for as long as it takes. We still have moments, and it's been almost 2 years, but you give each other a lot of grace, and also, lean on your neighbors, your family, and your friends. If they're offering to help, take it. It's sometimes some people have too much pride and they don't want to take it, or they are just used to doing things on their own or having a lot of control in their lives. But I will say that if someone is offering to help, and I'm talking beyond the food train, right, not right after the funeral, but I'm talking like when everybody else kind of seems to go back into their homes, if someone else is there to help you, take it. Because being a single parent is not easy. You need somebody else on your emergency care list at the school. You need somebody to, help you when you need medications and your kid is sick and you're by yourself at the house with them. Or if you're at work in a meeting and the kids need to be picked up, you got to have people that can support you and really rally around you to do that. And I really think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's really important to have people that are going to be in the trenches with you and they're
Yep.
going to show up and be a support. And it's great because it sounds like you've had some of those people, whether it's your family or some friends as well, that have been that support for you. So
Yes, I have been
thank
very lucky in
you.
that. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Jess, so much for coming and sharing your story and some advice that you have for people that are trying to support their kids through grief. I really appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the Brave Widow podcast. I would love to help you take your next step, whether that's healing your heart, finding hope, or achieving your dreams for the future. Do you need a safe space to connect with other like-minded widows? Do you wish you had how-tos for getting through the next steps in your journey, organizing your life, or moving through grief? What about live calls where you get answers to your burning questions? The Brave Widow membership community is just what you need. Inside, you'll find courses to help guide you, a community of other widows to connect with, live coaching and Q&A calls, and small group coaching where you can work on what matters most to you. Learn how to heal your heart, find hope, reclaim joy, and dream again for the future. It is possible. Head on over to bravewidow.com to learn more.